On Sunday, the Eagles host the Green Bay Packers, 2 seed versus the 7 seed. Jalen Hurts, after missing 2 games with a concussion, after the Eagles saying absolutely nothing, as they should. That's the way that the rule is written. When someone is in the concussion protocol, you don't comment on when they might be back, what their progress is. You let them recover. It's between them and the doctors and no one else. So the Eagles have honored that, but it's created a complete and total mystery as to when he'll be back. Well, he was back in practice yesterday on a limited basis, which means he's working through the stages. Doesn't mean he's cleared yet, but he's working through enough to the point where he's allowed to practice limited basis. Here's both Jordan Mailata and Devontae Smith with the question of how Jalen Hurts looked in practice on Wednesday.
Today?
Sharp. He looked sharp, I'll be honest. Looked really sharp. Brought a lot of energy. He was out there in short sleeves. I've been in his position before with concussion, and when you miss time, you try and find ways to get back as fast as you can. But I think he did a great job of dealing with that and coming back as sharp as he did today. And I thought he had a phenomenal practice.
You had to ask him how he felt. My eyes look good.
And I think everyone is a little worried about the timing, him just not playing for a couple of weeks. Do you expect that to even be an issue this week?
It'll be all right. We'll figure it out.
I mean, it's easy to say that, and you want to express confidence. He's not going to say, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know. You're right. He hasn't played for a while. He's going to be rusty, and it's single elimination football. But it is a factor. You've got to get yourself back into it. First of all, you got to get yourself to the point where not that you can really do anything about it. You can't will it to happen, but your body, your brain has to heal to the point where you're cleared to play. And then beyond that, you got to be ready to play. There's limited exercise you can do until you're cleared to do that. You maybe you get a little winded, or you haven't been out there. There's a lot of different factors that go into it. That's a long time off, and for his sake, you hope he's sharp. For the Eagles' sake, you hope they don't miss a beat. But it's just an unknown because, as we've said, we went through a long stretch where a guy gets a concussion on Sunday, he's back the following Sunday, and it made me uncomfortable that it was that easy to get back. And for whatever reason, with Jalen Hurts, and it has to be because he hasn't been able to pass the stages of the protocol. Maybe he's had symptoms. Nobody's talked about it. He'll be able to when he's finally cleared. He can't even talk to the media until he's finally cleared. But it's a long time relative to what we're used to seeing, and you hope he's okay. And when he's okay, you hope he's able to go out and play. But it's a question mark. It's a question mark, if nothing else.
Yeah, definitely a long time. A long time, and I think just at a base level, right? Ex-football player, you watch a ton of football too, of just going like, hey, I'm that hit itself, it wasn't like the most egregious hit we've ever seen. And I'm not trying to judge or anything like that, but I'm just talking about just, hey, watching a game and watching that hit, and when it went down, after it went down, did I sit there and go, oh, wow, well, he might be, in concussion protocol for 3 weeks or something like that? It's crazy in itself. It really is, like, to everything you're explaining. So, yeah, I'm concerned about Jalen Hurts and his health and where he's at. Here's the hit right here. I mean, again, I know it's a good hit. Certainly, I've been a part of some hits where it might not look as bad as it really is or as bad as it really felt. But we've seen probably hundreds of hits this year that are more egregious than that. But it just caught him the right way. And, obviously he's discombobulated. And how could you not be worried? You said all the right things. I don't care who you are. Right? You go that long of a time without being able to practice for real, and then without those live game reps, there's going to be some rustiness, and you're going to be some worry from the organization of the fan base whether he's going to be sharp and hitting on all cylinders when it comes to the pass game. So I understand all those concerns, and I understand the questions from the Philadelphia media, and I'm certainly wondering the same thing there too. We got a game here on Sunday where, both quarterbacks are dealing with issues, and Jalen Hurts and the Eagles are a Super Bowl contender in a big way, and he's yet to be, cleared. And that is concerning in the fact that he's going to get limited reps with his football team here going into such a big game.
You played in the days of how many fingers? I mean, it was almost that.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't until 2009 that the NFL put a clear return to play protocol in place that took it out of the hands of the team doctor, involved an unaffiliated neurotrauma consultant during games, independent neurologist, after the games to give the final clearance, because there's always that, and always had been that conflict of interest for the team doctor, because the team wants the players to be available to play. So sometimes the medical judgment got affected. When you were playing, did you have any concussions? And just kind of walk us through how it felt for you, if you had one, when it was time to come back and play, and, after the time, if you even missed any time because of it. Did you go through what Hurts is going through now?
Not to this extent, right? I had concussions. My worst concussions were like Chris doing idiot stuff off the field, okay? Whether I got hit by a car, and as I've told you that story before, and
yes,
on the playground once growing up, I got kind of upended by a girl who got in my way, and I was about to run her over and kickball, and she took my feet out from underneath me, and my head hit the concrete. So I've dealt with concussions, but as far as the NFL is concerned, like, I had probably concussions that would be deemed concussions today, but back in then, it was just you got your bell rung, to your point. So I never had to go through a process like this. Right, this was just becoming a thing at the very end of my career. The concussion, the litmus test, or whatever the hell it's called. I'm blanking on the name there. Right, that was I think my last year in the NFL, or maybe the second, was the first time I even had to take anything like that. I was like, what the hell is this thing?
You mean the baseline?
The baseline test, exactly right. So no, Mike, I never really had to deal with this or go through this, and I have no experience with it. And I'm sure it's frustrating, but it's a great thing that's in place for the players. As we know, you got to save them from themselves at times.
You know what my first thought was when you talked about your head hitting the concrete?
Yeah.
Poor concrete.
Well, yeah, you know it. I lost a few teeth in the crash there, and certainly probably some brain cells, but nobody's going to notice that. But honestly, Mike, too, here's the other thing.
Did you ever?
Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to ask you one more question.
Yeah.
Did you ever not feel right for a couple of weeks afterward?
I did.
In those days when you got your bell rung?
Yeah. I think I had some, I feel like, I don't feel quite myself, right? Where's my energy at? I feel like I'm a little foggy. I certainly had some of that. I had one in Texas in college that I got swung around and hit in the temple by somebody else as I was getting swung around. And I remember that week, and that was literally a time where I got up and I saw three, right? It was like, oh my gosh, I see three guys, and Mick hit the one in the middle. But that week after, I remember feeling different and wondering, like, man, did that hit in my head, affect this? But it wasn't such a big thing that you brought it to the trainer or thought about stuff like that at that time and age in life. And yeah, so that was probably my biggest experience of that, Mike.
And, it makes me think of Joe Burrow on Saturday night. We saw him with the two-man pile driver into the ground head first. They took him into the blue tent, and he was fine after 5 or 10 minutes, and maybe he was fine. But, we've seen, to your point from earlier, we've seen hits that look far worse than what happened to Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
But you never know what it's going to be.
That's right.
That triggers a concussion. And I feel like some of these guys try to play it off as well.
Agreed.
That's how they're wired.
Right.
Right? The old Hines Ward explanation. I got hit in the head, so I pointed to my ankle.
My shoulder, right. Or what Joe Burrow did the other night. Joe Burrow played it off like it was neck. Like, again, I don't know if it was his head or his neck, but I certainly was sitting there watching going, if I was Joe Burrow right here, I'd get up and act like my neck hurt. And then as he got up, he started doing this, if you remember. Now, I don't know if that was real or not, but yes, I think your diehard competitors who love the sport, they're going to be in the moment and quick enough on their toes, even when they've been hit in the head, to go, oh, wait, don't grab my head. Oh, wait, let me do something here because I don't want to miss this game or maybe next game or whatever else. And I think that's a very real thing, Mike, that we've talked about a bunch, you and I.
The thing I've noticed the last 2 years since the Tua Tagovailoa incident where he was stumbling clearly and they put him back in the game, when a guy stays on the ground to collect himself, that's in lieu of trying to get up and showing that ataxia, which is now the key word they look for, that gross motor instability where you're having trouble walking, you're having trouble keeping your feet under you. And when I saw Burrow laying on his back, kind of collecting himself on Saturday night, I thought, And
Yeah,
right. I'm not passing judgment.
No,
I'm
I
not
hear
finding
you. We're
fault.
just talking. Right.
Players want to play.
Right.
And the system is put in place, even with independent, unaffiliated. They're not unaffiliated from the game of football. They're just unaffiliated from the team. The game of football wants its best players to play. And even if there isn't specific pressure from the team, there's just a broader pressure from the circumstance. Like, if you get it, you understand they want these guys to be able to play, and they want to be able to play, and don't be Debbie Downer and be the one that says they can't play.
Right.
And that doesn't overwhelm and overpower medical judgment, but it's just one of the factors. This is hardly the same thing as the night that I took somebody's head to my cheek and clearly had a concussion playing basketball, clearly had a concussion. My wife, who was pregnant at the time, had to drive me to the hospital 11 o'clock at night, and that's real health care. I remember that being the discussion with Tua. It can't just be check the box and put the guy back on the field. It has to be health care that's provided on the spot to these players, and they've not quite mastered that yet. But with Jalen Hurts, they have.
They have. They certainly seem like they're doing their due diligence there, right? And why they're doing it or whatever. I mean, yeah, the professional. But like to your point, where I think the doctors, everybody, they feel that energy on the sideline. Like, oh, it's Mahomes. He got hurt. Uh-oh, I know how important he is, and I understand that everybody on the team is looking at me and looking at, him, and we're all evaluating it. And, man, I don't want to ruin it for everybody breathing down my neck looking at my team. Yeah, there's that human emotion that you're talking about, certainly. But, yeah, good for the Eagles. They're doing things the right way, certainly. And, yeah, with the game on Sunday, we'll see where it goes. I have a hard time thinking Jalen Hurts is going to be as sharp as he possibly can. It's 3 weeks without practice.
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.